Freedom. What is it to be free? The person and emotions are always looking to be able to do as I please, to have the freedom to go here, to go there, to love who I want to love, to just have the freedom to do what I want to do. And of course that's the mind's idea of freedom, and that's not the truth. Because you'll never be free until you're free of your own self, your own negativity, your own feelings. I like these days to say to be free of your feelings rather than your negativity, because all negativity is feeling. I'd like you to examine that, please. So freedom is to be free of my feelings. And my feelings come from interpreting my life instead of just living my life and taking the action that comes from my experience and my intelligence to take action. So freedom is to, in other words, is to be a body. Now, to have no feelings is to just be a body. That's a remarkable thing, isn't it? Because we've been taught to have all sorts of feelings and things going on inside of us. And if you have that, you have a subculture, sub meaning under your body, and you're not natural. You can only be natural when you don't have any feelings. You're not interpreting your life. Your life is precisely as it is. And your body is living your life. Nothing else is living your life. Your feelings or yourself is interpreting your life, but it's not living it. Your body is living your life. For instance, you couldn't be here through your feelings. You're here through your body being here. You couldn't be at the breakfast table this morning, no matter how much you felt like it or didn't feel like it, if your body wasn't there. You see, your body is the only truth. And it seems the impossible task that I'm endeavouring to get everybody to be their body. And the only way I can get them to do that is to point out that your feelings are the things that stop you from being natural, stop you from being free. Now, grasp, won't you, that does not stop sensations. Sensation is not a feeling. I've got to keep saying this so that you don't, the mind, because the mind will get the wrong edge of it, the wrong end of the stick. So your feelings are interpretations, they're personal interpretations. Because the person next to you is not feeling what you're feeling. But the person next to you has every moment the sensation of being alive. Like now. You have a sensation which is the registration of your sensory body inside. There's a sensation there called sensation. Now that's sensational. It's not a feeling. It's sensational. That's the beginning of your body. And then from that, you can come up to your senses and you can say, I see through my body, feel through my body, touch, feel through my body, taste, and then your body begins. But the sensation is the beginning of it. There it is. Now everybody on earth has that sensation. But everybody does not have what you're feeling about your life. Doesn't have your discouragement with what's happening. Your pain doesn't have that emotional pain. So sensation is universal. Everybody has sensation, so that can be safely said. Pure sensation can be safely said to be universal. A universal truth is sensation. But feelings are not universal in that. What you feel is different to what this person feels and what's different to that person feels. And if you're both angry at the same time, then indeed, they are both angry, you've both got the same feeling. But it's not universal because the next person's not angry. Do you understand what it is to have a universal truth? A universal truth is something that's in everyone, every moment. And these feelings are not the same in everybody, every moment. They're not universal. And that means they're not cosmic, the deepest profundity. And now we come to me, inside there, the sweetness, the goodness, the rightness that has no opposites, that's there now in everybody. It's there now. It's under the sensation. You actually go through the sensation, which pure sensation, which is the beginning of the body. And you sink through that. And you're in me, this extraordinary place that has no opposite. What a relief it is, like now when I'm talking about it, what a relief it is. And I, who am listening to these words, am there because it's always been there. It doesn't come and go. My feelings come and go. My thoughts come and go. My emotions come and go. But this is always there. Like now. It is universal. That's the universal truth. There it is. Now it has no form. It has no images. It just has no attributes. But it's me in that body. Absolutely, intimately. Me. And it's deep underneath myself. And if my intelligence gets identified with myself, which are my emotions, I immediately leave me. And I get identified with all this seething mass of stuff that comes and goes. But underneath it all is this universal truth. Me. There it is now. That's right. And it has no opposite. There's no bad in there. It's only good, or it's only right, or it's only true. There it is. Now that's the place of death. Death is the absence of existence. That's all. Nothing else. So when you're there now, there's an absence of existence, although existence still is. My intelligence, my consciousness is able to be in this place that has no opposite, out of existence while I am in existence. That's a universal reality. And there it is. Now when I try to tell the scientists to be logical instead of being rational, I tell them the universal truth. And the universal truth in regard to these bodies is that the whole universe is sensory. This is very important to you. This is a sensory body made by sense. These lights and the microphones and the ceilings and everything around us is sensory. If you don't have any senses, it just disappears. So the thing to realize, it only lasts 70 or 90 years if you're lucky. It might end tonight. And if it ends tonight, who's to know? There's nobody to know. Because you'll be in the place where there's nothing. Beyond all existence, which is that place now inside of me that you can sensate there. That's nothing, isn't it? What's happening in there? Nothing. And yet, isn't it pure and beautiful? Isn't it right and good? Without being able to put any other words to it, except perhaps sometimes beauty, perhaps God, perhaps love, some name like that. And it's me. Death is the end of existence, so to be in that place is to have actually died, because there's no existence there. And that gets rid of the fear of death, the mind's fear of the death. Now, for a long time, you have to go into your feelings. When you're young, as I was saying, you develop feelings, because that's the way of the society, that's the way of ignorance, is feelings. So everybody has to develop ignorance. There's no escape. Everybody has to develop ignorance. Because only in the midst of ignorance can you know the truth. Like in the midst of darkness, only then can you see light. So you have to develop ignorance, and you develop feelings. And there's a time then when you have to express your feelings. Your feelings of anger, resentment, and there are whole therapies directed towards that. But I come along now and say, that's not the truth. There is a place for that if you need it. And why do you need that? To express your feelings. To go into them, to go in and discover what they're about and do that. But that's down there. That's way down there along the ramp. And if you need to do that, you've got to do it. But why don't you come up here and be with me? There is no need to go into your feelings ever again. There is no need to release your feelings ever again, except in love and giving. The thing to do here is action. If there is a feeling of resentment or any negative feeling, because all feelings are negative, if there's any feeling, then the question is, why am I resentful? Why am I unhappy? Why am I angry? Not to release your anger and put it onto some other poor person. Because the human way of love seems to be the right to share my negativity with my partner. Is that so? Isn't that what human love is supposed to be? Where I can share with you my negativity. And I come along and say, how dare you? Why do you want to be so selfish that you would share your negativity with your partner? That sounds to me utter and complete selfishness. Why don't you find out why I am negative and take some action instead of thinking about it? Action alone purifies. Now, let us go into this place that I'm talking about, please. Because that can communicate far better than the speaker can. So just close the eyes, because you will already be in this universal place. And it communicates. It is the truth. I am nothing compared with this. I speak from that place, but I'm just a noise compared to that. And don't doubt that it is in you. And the mind has difficulty believing it, because the mind's always got to believe in something because it's indirect. It's always looking for experience, and this is not an experience. This is me, direct, utterly, here now, immediately, accessible, now, direct. There's no mind in here. It's just being, now. There is no past or future in here. So there's no place for thought. For thought is always about the past or the future. There's no time in here. It's a timeless place. It's now. It's rediscovered every moment. Now don't think. Come back. Consciously being or looking into nothing. Looking into the place where there is no object to look at eliminates the subject. Then there's just the state of being. Open the eyes, but don't leave the place. There's no need to leave it, the universal place. And of course, as you get into action, which you're not in now, then the action brings you into the world of awareness where all action takes place. But in between the action, you can always return to the place of consciousness which is there. Because that is the universal place. And you have done it often enough to immediately go in there at any time. Now, would anyone like to ask me any questions arising out of what we've been talking about today? Yes, it's Marilyn, yes, behind me.
I'd like to do what you were saying just before
I just wanted to speak about something you were saying before this last going into me.
Yes, you said with feelings to ask the question why. It's been my experience that once that question why comes up, it then leads to another question, which leads to another question, and it just goes on and on and on.
It's my experience that if you ask the question why, as you said, of why am I feeling this, there then rises another question, and then another one, and another one. But that's not the right question. The question should be honest and direct. Why am I doing this or being this? Why? What am I not accepting? How am I not accepting life as it is? It's got to be related to life as it is, and your non-acceptance of life as it is, which is a justification, for instance, of anger. Anger always comes from not accepting life as it is. And then if I feel angry, then I should take some action. Not to go and punch the guy on the face, but to take some action to eliminate the reason why I am reacting like this. I should take there's a practical action which we go into our feelings. I beg your pardon?
Questioning that reaction.
Yes. Yes. Not going into feelings, because that's endless. If you start to go in to examine your feelings, then that's an endless enterprise. Your feelings are utterly untrustworthy. They change every day. They change every hour. They're just utterly unreliable. And you know that. And yet we're still slaves to them. They are not what you are. They are an acquisition. And the spiritual life, of course, is what you've been doing, is getting rid of yourself and getting rid of your negativity. But eventually you have to face the fact that I'm telling you that one word for all your negativity, one word for yourself, one word for it all, is your feelings. And as you heard from when I was interviewed and asked that question, it was so unbelievable to the man asking me the question. You saying that the state of enlightenment has no feeling in it? And the answer is yes. Truth has no feeling in it. Love does not have a feeling in it. Love's sensational. And I say that to bring it down to what it means. When you're making love, it is a sensational thing. You make love with your body, and your body is sense, and your body is sensational. So to make love rightly, it has to be sensational. There can't be any thought process, there can't be any emotional process, because that's subculture, that's not the body. So when you drink water, that's sensational. When you make love, that's sensational. When you love somebody, that's sensational. I know we say it's a feeling, but it's not. It's sensational to begin with, and then it becomes knowledge. Now, knowledge is not feeling. Feeling is the exact opposite to knowledge. Feeling leads to more feelings and other feelings, whereas knowledge is a direct knowledge now. So, sensation leads to knowledge, leads to intelligence, whereas feelings lead to the making of more time and more difficulty. Such as, if I might talking about accepting life as it is, I notice that we have a gentleman over here in a wheelchair. If you don't mind me speaking about that, sir? Then he has found that the only way around this, whatever it is, while it's there, is to accept it as it is. Is that true?
That's correct.
That's the only way. And if he riles against it and gets emotional because he can't do this or can't do that, he has to, for his own protection, get rid of those feelings and say, it's okay. I am accepting my life as it is. And in those moments, he's likely to discover what God is. Because when we accept life as it is, particularly under such a discomfort and such as to be in a wheelchair. I mean, that's really counts, doesn't it? How about your problems or my problems? How about being in a wheelchair? You know, really. I know our problems are terrible, but how about that? So the more we accept life as it is, the more we're able to be close to God, and the more clarity we've got. And we who have all our mobility and everything are inclined to dismiss those things and start to get mixed up in our feelings of what we like or don't like, instead of saying, I do not want to be unhappy. What do I do? Please tell me. Well, I'm telling you, accept my life as it is. Then I can take some action if it's possible. Because if the gentleman in the wheelchair can take any action to make his life better, he will do that. But if he can't, then what can he do? Think about it, feel about it, get resentful, put it onto somebody else? It's not going to serve any purpose. Because the thing is, he has to enlighten. He has to enlighten that which has brought this about. Something has brought this about just so that he might enlighten it. And by accepting life as it is, as he said, that is the way. He's enlightening a negativity that's behind every one of us, controlling life on this earth. And this is only an exaggerated or a dramatic way of demonstrating, when I'm talking to this gentleman, that we all have our wheelchair. All of us. If we would only face it, then we purify ourselves. Ourselves being our selfishness. Because all you can do is accept your life as it is. But if you want to think about it or feel about it, then you go into that endless subculture. Accept it as it is and do what you are moved to do as action. To make it better or improve. Do anything as action. But not as a result of feelings. Because they are reactions. Feelings are reactions. And you'll probably make things worse. So anybody like to ask me a question? Yes, Vince?
Is intuition, is that a good feeling? Does that come from feeling?
Intuition comes from sensation. See, your body as it is, each one of you has a unique body, a unique system, a unique cell. You're a unique cell in the body of mankind, each one of you. And each has certain uniqueness of creativity or abilities, and one of those things that is more prominent in some than others is intuition. But intuition really is some light coming through the dark, and really I suspect that there's a place where there's no intuition because it's already there. There's an inner knowledge. See, intuition is the sudden knowledge of something. Whereas I suspect that deeper down there's a place where it's already known, that there's no more intuition because it's already known. But where we live there is intuition, and it comes sheerly from the body. Such as I know you have intuitions that I know that they're remarkable, some of them. But that comes out of your body. And the stiller that you can become in your body and get out of your negativity or your controlling self, give that up, the more your intuitions will extend out through your whole life. And you will just have a knowledge, moment-to-moment knowledge. That doesn't mean that you're not going to get intuition, but you must have noticed, Vince, that your knowledge of your life has got broader and broader, although you may still have intuitions in it. Instead of being narrowed by the feelings and the fluctuations, how I feel today, how I feel yesterday, what I think about, that's a narrowness. And the whole spiritual life, isn't it, about to broaden the knowledge element, so that you don't have doubts in you, because feelings give rise to doubts. You think this is the solution today, that's the solution tomorrow, it changes, doubts rise, is that the way, is that not the way? All doubts disappear in this evenness, this place. So yes, someone else have a question, please. Yes, Leonie.
I've got a wheelchair and I'd like to face it. And I've been self-destructive all my life to myself and not endeavoured to keep the violence within me. And it builds up great pressure. Like I said, it manifests itself psychically. And the pressure and the judgment, the judge comes in, and also my fear of what other people think. And I'd just like to face why my mind was so violent or is violent against myself.
Okay, then, so Leonie says that she has a violence inside of her which she wants to face, and she has faced, and she is facing, and that's the only way to do it and to contain that violence. You know, you reach a point where for a while we all, as we're developing, have to put our anger on someone else. And then we get into therapies where we express our anger, right, okay. But eventually we have to contain our anger while we look at why am I getting angry. Now if you can't, it's usually there's something in existence that makes us angry. Although we have the cells inside of us that are determining this, those cells are reflected in the external existence. So while ever you have something, Leonie, in your external life that is troubling you or disturbing you, then that anger is going to keep rising. So you have to address your external life to get rid of the inner anger.
Why would I do it against myself if I cut my body up?
Why would I do it against myself and cut my body up?
And smoke incessantly.
And smoke incessantly. Well, the self is self-destructive because it's immortal, you see. And the body, which I am, is mortal. So my body wants to live in harmony, I'm just going to use these models, wants to live in harmony and peace and all that it does naturally, whereas myself is a cantankerous, selfish, emotional and psychic energy deep down inside of me, just inside of me. And that is self-destructive, meaning it's not destructive of itself, it's destructive of my body. That's what's called self-destruction. It doesn't care about destroying my body, it doesn't care about anything because it's a psychic demon. And that is the negativity that's in the human race, and that's the negative cells that we, somehow or other by the way of things, have to enlighten and change. And that's what our lives are about, and that's what your life and everybody's is about. We have to contain our anger, not by suppressing it, but by taking responsibility for it. And when I take responsibility for it, I say, well, I don't want this anymore, thanks. This is my body and this is my life. And this anger or whatever it is that's in me, that is not me. And that's the truth. It's something that I've acquired due to the ignorance of my society. And it's demonic. It is the devil of the world, and the world can't change because the devil runs the world with the devil of the self. Not some devil that we invent like the Christians, but it's my own self, which has taken over my integrity. And the whole spiritual life is to regain my integrity. But while I have a self down there determining everything by its emotions, I lose my integrity, which means I start to get split and I'm divided. And so I have to regain my integrity by not giving in to myself, which means, well, the best advice that I've been able to come up with is to be true to the situation and not true to myself, so that I face the situation and take right action despite myself. Then I'll be true. But if I'm true to myself, I'm sure to be selfish, make the wrong decisions, react, etc. Has anybody else a question about your life? Something by which I can demonstrate all that we've been talking about today through your life? I know the questions all disappear when you come here and start to go into me and there, because there's no questions in me. But sometimes the things that I talk about can cause an emotional reaction in the subculture here, in the subconscious, in the self. And it's good that you speak about that before you go away. Oh, here's a lady. Yes, thank you.
Fiona just mentioned about one of her physical addictions, smoking, and that's mine. I battled it half of my life. And do you have any advice, apart from what you just said there, about how we can gain the strength to overcome that physical addiction?
Yes, what is your name? Tracy. Tracy said, referring to what Leonie said about a physical addiction such as smoking, which Tracy has been addicted to half her life. And she says, have you any advice about how to get rid of that? Well, nothing can be done before it's time. Now that can be a cop-out or seem to be a cop-out for everybody, particularly smokers, right? We all know that. I having smoked. But I once, in London must have been 15 years ago, there was a man that he asked me the same question. So at that time I said, well, there's one way to stop smoking. I'd suggest you go and buy 10 packets and go and smoke them all at once, which of course is an aversion therapy, I suppose. Now you smoke them all at once and you keep going and you vomit and you still have another cigarette and you just keep doing that. And so he came back to me 12 months later and I said, well, how'd the smoking go? He said, it was no good. What you told me was no good. He said, it stopped for a while and then I started up again. And I said, are you smoking now? He said, oh, no, I've given it up now. See, that's how the mind works. It doesn't necessarily do it all at once, but the message gets through. But that's only if you were... I don't tell people what to do because you have to be responsible for your own actions. But that's one way, because the body is likely to just reject it. But while you just give it enough, it just won't reject, and it actually becomes the body's own addiction as well as yourself's. And it's very difficult for the body then. So otherwise, no. Only thing is that you have spoken about it in public here to me today. And it's quite possible that time's up now that you've spoken about it. And that you might feel inside of you, I'm never going to smoke again. Because that's how I did it. Not that I did anything, because it was done for me. But when I was about 30, 31, 32 or something, I'd smoked since I was a young man. And I suddenly, someone told me that my breath was smelling terribly tobacco. And I said, well, okay then, I'll never smoke again. That's the only way I could do it. I'll never smoke again. And I told all my friends I'll never smoke again. And it happened to be at a party, which I don't have these days, and I declared to everyone, I'll never smoke again. And I never smoked again. Although I must say I dreamt about it a few times.
That's the thing though, I know that the habit is terrible, but it's the actual desire, and even if I have tried and given up for months here and there, but it's the desire I wish to give up.
It's the desire that I wish to give up. I've given it up for a time here and there, but it's the desire I want to give up. Well, how about the one that I just suggested to you? You didn't mention that. The action that I just mentioned. To tell all your friends today, not tomorrow, but immediately now, I will never smoke again. How about that? Oh, the terror of it, the horror. The horror. No, let's do it tomorrow or next week. So that's all I can say. Oh yes, I can hear the pain. And then you have to keep repeating that, and you have to go through the withdrawal from the addiction. There's no doubt you've got to go through the withdrawal of feelings. Feelings are an addiction. And when you start to withdraw from your feelings, of course, they react even more. And you've got to go through a withdrawal process like smoking or anything. And it's very painful. But there's no easy way out because you made your own feelings, you made your own addiction, and then when you withdraw from it, you've got to face the consequences. We all have to. No doubt about that, because we made it, and that's justice. So if you could get to do what I said, that would be a very quick solution. There's a lady laughing out of nervousness. I think we mentioned that earlier because it's a pretty nerve-wracking thing to contemplate for a smoker. Very confronting, and that's what it's supposed to do, you see, because that gives power and will. I will never. If you do not love me, if you do not love me and you continue to put your pain on me, although I love you, I'm going to leave you if you do it again. The same addiction. You know, you've got to be able to face yourself in any body as well as in this body, your own body. You've got to face yourself in anybody and be prepared to go against any feeling because it is not right, because it makes you unhappy or disturbs your life. And that brings about will. And that's what's lacking in our society, is the authority of will, of being able to overcome my own feelings, what I would want, my own desires, for what is right. But that's coming. Don't worry, and because you're here. You've been with me before, Tracy? No, because you're here. Leonie.
I've been with you.
Oh, I see. Good, okay then, well perhaps something will happen now. Tracy, how's it going for you being with me, Tracy?
Oh, I'm enjoying it very much.
Good, okay, now that's me in there. That's where you enjoy. You enjoy it in me. Because what I speak about goes straight down into me in the deep place of profundity, and there's an acknowledgement in there. I love this, I like this openness, this sweetness, this rightness, this truth. And that, of course, opens up your psyche. And somehow or other, some light comes through all the problems and the troubles.
I'm feeling a lot of truth through what you're saying.
Good, okay. Anyone else got a question, please? Took me a while to see that lady's hand. Anybody got a question then? Well, let me see what I got here Yes, what I've got on my note here the pain of human love I got here. Well, that reminds me of what I carried around Europe. And I know a number of people here came to Europe with me. But I carried this. This is the front page of the Weekend Australian magazine of before I left, of July 1. And it's got I'm going to talk about the pain of human love now. And it's got a drawing on the front of a very distressed young lady with lovely golden hair. And she's with these very exaggerated tears coming down her face in the drawing. And the title underneath of the article that it's illustrating is The Other Woman in the 90s. And this woman who's crying is thinking. It's got these little dots, these little coming up to the thinking capsule that they put the words in. And she's looking at us with her tears running down her face saying, I don't know who to blame more, him or her. Now, I wondered if she ever thought of blaming herself. You see, that's what we do. We want to blame him or we want to blame her. But the question is, what have I done? First, what am I doing for him to go and love another, what have I done? Now that doesn't mean you've done anything, but it's the first question is not to blame someone else for my life, but to see, is there an error in my way in which I was with my partner? Did I take it for granted that he or she would be with me every day? Did I take it for granted that love, once we fall in love, it's going to be like that all the time? Did I not realize that love between two people, man and woman, has to be kept continuously, moment to moment, alive and full? Because if I lapse, if I relax into my feelings and start to go backwards and forwards, or if I start to assume that this love is just going to be like this for the rest of our lives, I am doomed. He or she will leave me because I have not been responsible for love. But that's the first thing to examine, whether I have loved enough. And I think that a good way, again, of seeing whether I've loved enough is if your partner died now, would you have wanted to say goodbye? Or have you already loved enough so that they know that you love them? Have you? Do you? Have you done that? Have you lived that today? Well, that's love. Love is not having to say goodbye. And that's pretty dreadful for us. And when people die, they weep because I didn't have time to tell him or her how much I loved her. But you did have time. You did have time, didn't you? You got all the time in the world. But you get loving other things and distracted. And so love dies that way between partners. And I will not let my love die. Never. Because I know what's waiting. The forces of the world are waiting to separate anything that takes love for granted. So, the pain of human love. What is human love? Human love is to possess something. Human love is to change something. Human love is to hold on to something. Human love is to get something that will ease my own pain and my own selfishness. That's what human love is. Whereas divine love is just to love. To love. Like I'm talking about, if I love you, for God's sake, am I right up there? And the answer is yes. I love you enough not to have to say goodbye. That's how it is. It's a state. It's not human love. It's impersonal and it's divine love. So we've got to get out of this fearful, blaming human love and leave it behind. But to do that, we have to go through human love. You know, you can't suddenly jump into impersonal love and divine love. You can't do that. You have to go, like I did, through human love and know the pain of it and make our own self through loving humanly, so that when we come to our senses, which means to our body and out of our feelings, we then have the strength to be able to go against my own possessiveness, my own wanting to do other things but love. Then I can go into impersonal love, but only when I've gone through human love. Have you had enough pain in your human love yet? Have you? That's the question I'm asking you. Have you blamed life enough? Have you gone into your feelings enough and worked out nothing and never will through your feelings? Have you suffered enough from your feelings, which is human love? Can you say, I don't want to suffer anymore, and I will not judge any situation through my feelings? Indeed, I can have intuition, as Vince asked, but what does that do? You can't act on intuition. You just receive intuition and you have a knowledge, and you don't act on knowledge. You just have a knowledge, that's all. So have you had enough of human love yet? Or are you going to keep falling for it all the time, thinking it's going to get better? And it's not going to get better. Because you reach the point of responsibility where you have to just love and get nothing for yourself. And that's a very beautiful state, because that's the impersonal divine love state. To love and get nothing for yourself. For yourself, mind you. Yourself being for your pain, for your insecurity. To get nothing for that. But there is something that comes back through loving and giving. Something that returns to you. Something that's indescribable. A harmony, a joyousness, a release that is not for yourself. For yourself, his name is pain. And we are not painful creatures. We are the way we are now. Because we're attached to being human beings. We're attached to being sorrowing beings, doubtful beings, fearful beings. That's what human beings are. But we are really beings. You know, we're cosmic beings. Actually, cosmic means impersonal, divine beings in these bodies. And that's our nature. It's not negativity. The nature of the world is negativity. The nature of the earth is not negative at all. And we are earthlings. But we've become worldlings. And the nature of worldlings is fear, insecurity, self-doubt, and all those negatives. But we are earthlings, made of the substance of the earth, of the birds and the trees, and the grass and the earth. That's our nature. And to do that, to be that, we have to leave what we've acquired, the world, behind. And the world is only our negativity. You don't have to step out and renounce the world. What you've got to do is give up your own negativity. And then you gradually become, like all of you are here, you gradually become an earthling again. And then you have the sense of what it is to be cosmic, and that freedom that I was talking about. Not the right to do as you please, because your whole life pleases you then, when you become an earthling and one with the earth. So that's what you're doing. Anyone else have a question now anything I've touched on? Yes, Michael? Bob, sorry, Bob.
I was wondering, Barry, what type of I went for a walk in the pine forest and I don't want to walk with another fellow, but I had this longing to walk with a lady. Where previously my life I wanted to be alone, find God in that stillness. What sort of a longing is that? Is that a love or is it selfish?
So Bob is saying that in the break he went for a walk in the pine forest, and once where he used to enjoy walking alone, he was moved inside to walk with a lady. Is that right, Bob? And he says, well, this longing, is that a love? What is it? Yes, it's a longing, and longing requires action. Because if ever you get a feeling, you've got to take action to get rid of the feeling. And longing is a feeling, as we all know. So the action to take there, Bob, is to approach a lady and ask her to go for a walk in the pine forest with you. Why not? And overcome the fear that has made you always want to walk alone, because I don't know whether that's due to your previous experience of woman and hurt that you've had from her, and therefore you've gathered your independence, which man does, and you walk alone now rather than face the pain of loving a woman again, or whether it's man's natural independence where he has loved woman and he feels that her love is so great that he feels she's going to take his independence from him. Man has great independence in him. The last thing he wants to surrender, he'll love so much, but when it comes down to the last little ring around him, he wants to preserve his independence. And of course, in loving woman, you can't do that. You have to love her, and in that love, there is your integrity. The integrity of love protects you. So, I don't know which it was, but it's a very good thing, Bob, that you want to walk through the pine forest or through any forest with a woman. Because she is the forest, you see. You know all the nymphs of the forest and all those lovely stories that she's in there, hiding there. And who else is in the forest? Who else are these fairies and all these wood spirits and things for man? Who else is it but my love, woman? You know, that principle that I cannot live without, nor be without getting dried and desiccated and mental and hard and independent. So yes, she belongs to the forest, and I belong in the forest with her, and that's the truth. And that forest is the sort of garden, the Garden of Eden, the Garden of Love, and I belong in there with her, and she's never happy for long in there without me. So why wouldn't you ask her? And gradually return together. Or, if you never see her again, to have walked in the forest and tell her why you wanted to walk in the forest with her. And if she's a real woman, she'll resonate with the response of real woman to the longing of a man just to walk through the forest with her. Not anything else. The rest will follow. So that's the action that you take now, because that was the situation. And the sooner you do it, the better. Right? Okay, Bob. So, again, you see, nobody can show me anything on this earth of value but man and woman. Unless you want to have a try, like your computer. You know, I'm not belittling you in that, I don't. I'm just making the point there, you know. Or your bank account. You know, our bank account just disappears in our longing for a woman or a man. Just disappears, and we've got to erect all sorts of things to compensate for that. So why do you walk alone if you long to walk with her or him? You're free. I must admit that not everybody will want to walk with you, and some will be fearful of you. But keep trying, and someone will walk with you. Yes. Anyone else have a question, please? Yes, Betty.
Sorry, what must I do to put God first in my life rather than man?
What must I do to put God first in my life rather than man? I'd say, first of all, to be grateful for everything that you have, everything in your life that is good and right and true. To be grateful. For gratitude all gratitude goes to God. And to give up your negativity, because negativity has been put into woman by man, where I come from. So to face your own negativity and give that up, because that's the male sexual part of you, and not to think that he's going to live forever. To know that he might die tonight, this man. And have you said enough not to have to say goodbye? Because such love as that is love of God in the man. Yes, it's the most difficult thing for woman, because there's only man and woman, and behind the two of them is God, the principle. And of course the woman's got to see the man, and she loves him, and that's the love of God that's behind the man. And there's a part of her, of all of us, our surface minds, which loves the little idiosyncrasies of each other, that gets used to their mannerisms and the way they speak, and that's very lovely. Just like you'd have an animal that's very lovely in its characteristics and things, and that's a part of us. But she must never get attached to that. She can love that as long as she sees that he's not going to be here forever. I've got to see through him. I mustn't hold on to him. I mustn't try to possess him. I must be prepared to let him go. And why? Because he is mortal, and my love of him is immortal. So therefore it's something inside of him that I love. And if I love his physical body only, without seeing through it to this thing that I love behind him, I will suffer, and I will not be in love then, because I'll be in grief. So it's a matter of seeing through. We're not losing yourself in thinking that it's going to last forever. But the love's going to last forever, but the man or woman's not. So you mustn't identify with the man and get carried away with the things you love about him. Would you like to ask me another question, Betty? Very difficult. Very difficult. But that's the trick of the existence, isn't it? Where the only thing that man and woman takes is form. And behind all love is this God, this me inside your body. And somehow or other we have to be able to see through to the beloved behind the loved one. The man or woman is the loved one, and the beloved is inside of them or behind them. And if we get possessive, it means that we're identifying with the man or the woman. Not that we ever want to let them go or want them to leave us. Not talking about that sort of thing. Of course, if we love somebody, it naturally follows that we don't want them to leave us. We don't want that. But the thing is that life is in charge of our lives. And life is determined for every one of us, every one of these cells, as much as is possible through our living, for us to see through the person that we love, the body that we love, even our children, so that I don't get identified too much with my children, so that I know that there is a life running it. I can only do everything I can for him and her, my children, and I will do that out of my love of them. But I cannot control their life. I have to let them go. I have to let them follow their life and let them go when the time comes. I have to do that. Otherwise I'm focusing on their bodies and I'm possessing them and I'm not seeing the God that's behind them. So I have to let them go. And as I let people go, I become vaster inside. I become more immortal. Because immortality holds on to things, and the immortal lets go, is able to let go. Yes, anybody else got a question, please? Yes, Leonie, yes.
Barry, it seems in your teaching that this love of man and woman, that is the epitome of spiritual fulfillment.
Yes, it seems, Barry, that in your teaching the love of man and woman is the epitome of the fulfillment of love.
So, I work as a nurse.
I work as a nurse.
And I have a lot to do with severely disabled people and so forth. And I don't know, it is not possible for everyone to have this love between man and woman.
No, I work with invalid people, and it's not always possible for disabled people to have, not always possible for these people to have a love between man and woman. So what's the answer there? Is that the question? Well, the answer is that most of the world and most of the people that I'm addressing in the first instance are busily engaged in making love between man and woman. That's most of us in the world. The second thing is that if I am an invalid, as you've heard me say, to find the greatest good, the greatest love, I must accept my life as it is. So that anyone in an invalid position, disabled position, the first thing is I must accept my life as it is, because it is my life. Nobody else has done it to me. This is my life. And I must accept it as it is. But if I rail against it, if I have a deep emotion against it of resentment and frustration, I am not accepting my life as it is, and I cannot find the peace that comes from accepting my life as it is. Now that is another aspect of love that I teach. So it's all about love, and to accept my life as it is love. And when I'm dying, to accept my life as it is the release from death. So anyone who's dying, if you were with dying and you're a nurse, then in your own way and from your own genius, without trying to teach them anything, to induce them to accept their life as it is, to accept what's happening. Just accept it. Don't go along with it, not sort of words like, accept it. No, this is your life. And then a great peace comes in. So you see, although I talk of man and woman's love, it's not exclusive to what you're talking about. It's just that people don't hear me. There is no greater thing than to accept your life as it is. That is the holiest thing that there is. And you don't need to make love to do that. But most of the problems on earth come from not making love between man and woman, and the problems all come out of that.
So you can reach this state of peace and fulfillment individually
Of
as well.
Of course, so you can reach this state of peace and fulfillment individually. Of course you can. Now take a mature woman who's made love and known the joys and pleasures of love, and possibly has had children, and she now at present doesn't have the need of a man, or the man, it's not that she's rejected man, but he just doesn't seem to appear on the scene, and yet she's at peace inside of her and doesn't feel as though she has any need of man, but is open if he comes to love, if it's right for her. Then she has got all the love that she has made in her. And if she comes and listens to me, she can hear the truth of what I'm saying. She can be at peace in her love that she's made in her body, because love is made and it's sensational and it goes into the body. The problems go into the self, but the love is in the body. So she can be at peace and say, yes, I've loved and I've lived, and I'm at peace with the situation now, not because I'm excluding man, but because that's how it is just now. And there's a great peace comes into her and a fulfillment. Would you say that's true? Yes? Yes, of course it is.
Yes, I can see that there seems to be a lot of focus on the man and woman
I can see that, but there seems to be a lot of focus on the man and woman.
In my experience, is good and true.
Which in my experience is good and true, but...
I'm just thinking, when it's presenting your teaching to, say, someone else, it sometimes appears that there's always this focus.
In presenting your teaching to someone else, it appears that there's always this focus. Well, nobody's ever shown me anything on earth but man and woman. Sorry about that, but that's the truth. But the teaching addresses everything. But this is, you have a look at your mother and father or your friends and that. The only thing that bothers them is their love life. When they get older or someone's invalided, still the love life, you know. The love life is very important to them, unless they're very old, and I don't see why. How old you get, the love's not terribly important to you. And I don't care how old a man gets, the love of woman is still so precious to him because it's only his body that's getting old, and the impulse for the love of woman, for the love of the forest, for the love of the earth, for the love of the beauty of life, it'll always be in him. So yes, I understand the difficulty, and of course people use that against the teaching because they want me to talk about God, you know. Well, I talk about God, you hear that, but you must start with the impediment, the barrier to God first. You can't start with God because God's all right, God's inside of you, and God's beautiful and wonderful place. But why haven't I got that God up here in my surface mind? Why can't I, this wonderful love of God that I have in me, or this love or life inside of me, why do I have such trouble bringing it out into the world? So what we've got to address, there's no doubt that that's there, what we've got to address is the impediment, the blockage. And that's the ignorance, and that's the emotions and the self and all those things, and not accepting my life as it is. Somebody else have a question? Did you want to ask me another question? Tracy, it's Tracy, isn't it? Leonie, I'm sorry. No? Okay.
I might just share something with you. My mother has gone into a nursing home.
My mother has gone into a nursing home.
And she was 55 years in a very unhappy and destructive relationship.
She was 55 years in a very unhappy and destructive relationship.
And now she is just so happy and full of life and love to be separate.
Now she's so happy and full of life and love to be separate.
And people comment on it all the time.
And people comment on it all the time.
Wonderful.
If only she'd done it 50 years ago. Or 30. But that's what my teaching's about, isn't it? And we say, well, to communicate my teaching is not very difficult in your own experience of your mother. If she'd only done it, if that were possible, a few years after when she found out, if she'd only listened to me and had the courage to say, you do not love me enough, I'm going. Well, everything's right as it is, but that's the point, isn't it?
My father didn't know she had a personality.
My father didn't know she had a personality. What did she think he was? He thinks she was.
Apparently she's reverted to the personality she had before she married him.
Apparently she's reversed to the personality she had before she married him. Yes. And the people who knew her then would say that they recognise her then. Because that's true. This terrible oppressive burden of unhappiness and people living together because they're just fearful or because of the sake of the children. This has caused so much unhappiness on earth. And it's not on now anyway. It's not with the women I teach. It's just not here. That's not it. Although you've got to go through what you've got to go through. But not for... Did you say 35 or 55? 55 years. God, yes.
She sings a little song and it goes, I love life. I think she's just made it up.
She sings a little song And I think she just made it up, and she sings, "I love life." Well, there you go. Now there's the girl back again, isn't it? She's become the girl that she was. And she's shed all that damn stuff that man's put and oppressed her and said, you're not free, you're nothing, you're all this, you're just what I think you are, and you. Oh my God, what a burden. What a terrible burden that woman has taken on. And then for a man, of course, she then puts that unhappiness on you. And so we all both suffer. Okay. What's that? Who's that little boy got his hand up there? Has he got a question? Oh, come on, you must have a question. Who is it? What's his name? Kimber. Have you got a question, Kimber? No, he's shaking his head. He's about, how old is Kimber now? 7. Kimber's 7 there, okay. Righto, but if you put your hand up, I'm likely to ask you... I beg your pardon?
He yawned.
Oh, he yawned, did he? All right then. Okay. Yes, Tracy?
I've been in a relationship for a few years now with a much younger man, and I've had a child to him. And we've both become very complacent in the last couple of years, perhaps due to the fact that I've become overwhelmed with having a child. It's my first child. And I feel like that even though we're both still very much in love with each other, there isn't the passion there. I'm well aware that, in the course of relationships, the initial passion that you feel does change.
Why?
Why? Because it always has for me.
That's right.
I think it does.
Well, I'm trying to get rid of that.
What I want to ask is, what can you say about why that passion is not there, and how do you go about bringing it back? I mean, should there be an effort involved in bringing it about again?
Okay, Tracy. Now, Tracy says that she's in a relationship with a man that's younger than herself, and she's had a child by him, and that lately, or since the child was born, she's so busy with the child that the gloss seems to have gone off their relationship or their love. And although they love each other very much, there seems to be this sort of some sort of deadness seems to creep into the situation, and she's asking, how can this be stopped? How can this be avoided? Because in the first instances where we love one another, there's no sign of it. We're sparkling, and then gradually we sink into this sort of complacency. Well, the answer is, first of all, it's very difficult when you have a child. That's the first thing. Children often are the end of love between man and woman. Because why do you want a child? Well, you might say, well, I don't want a child. Didn't want a child, it just happened, and that's fair enough. But the first question I have to ask is why any woman wants a child. If you love a man, why do you want to have his child? Because that's giving in, as far as I'm concerned, that's giving into a perpetuation of the species, and that's all very well, serves the animal need. But I say that children come between man and woman's love, and that's what separated the whole of existence is children. That's not to say you shouldn't have children, but that's how it is. And then a man knows that the child is getting more attention than he is. There's a third party in it. And although he tries to love, he loves the child too, and you try to love one another, it's just not the same. Man and woman are made to be together. That's all. And nothing in between them. But that's how it is. So, now about keeping the love alive. Then you have to, in your particular situation, you have to both have what I call an intelligent conversation, and you have to say, now look, this is if it's true for you, that you've both got to start putting your love before the child or before anything, particularly you. You have to put your love with your man before the child, so that you can't get too tired with the child to make love. You can't. You just got to put you two first. And he's got to do the same, and he's got to and not stay back at the office or work or say how he's got to work harder now because he doesn't want to really come home. And that often happens too, because they're signs. So you've got to work really hard to get the love back again. But I think if you can give up smoking, that'll help too. Yeah, it will. You know, smoking takes an energy, and we all are wasting energy in some way or other. And smoking is one way of wasting energy. And smoking anything, drugs or nicotine or anything, is a way of wasting energy. And if we can only possibly break with it, we have a new lease of energy that's been wasted on an addiction. And so that's why the spiritual life tends to be a dropping away of the wasting of energy on things that are not really necessary to my life. That's what the spiritual life is, because you've got to get more and more energy for your own presence, to be present. And of course, if the man goes down to the club every month, every week, or goes to the football match without you, that's a waste of energy between the two of you. Although that can serve two people or suit two people in certain relationships, they can't expect to keep the love going. They can expect love to arise between them every week or 10 days when they make love, because suddenly the man discovers his passion or the woman does. But in between, they're busy with their lives and things, and that's not love. That's living death, really, to me.
Do you think that's, particularly for me now, that's why that passion and that desire has gone?
Do you think?
Because I have been so busy with my child.
Do you think for me that's why my passion and my desire is gone for me, because I've been so busy with my child? And the answer is yes. And also the man's disinterest. When did he start to get disinterested? I guess when I have my child. Now that's what a woman's got to watch very closely, because he'll do his best, because you love one another, he'll do his best to act it out, to say how good it is, etc., but you've got to give him as much attention as the child, because he's only a child and he wants your love. That's what he's with you for. And he's got to have your love and attention. And you need his. And that's where it goes, into the child. And you then start living through the child, and that's a half-life. And that then starts to become living death between man and woman. And when the children gradually grow up, they start to talk about the children all the time. That becomes the thing. But what about us? We've just gone further and further apart, and we've got a nice big home, and we've got lots of money, and we've got 2 cars, but what about us? Okay, so, well, you know what to do now. You get it back together. You can do that. Yes, this lady, your name?
My name's Kathy.
Kathy, yes, Kathy.
I have a question about healing. A lot of healing techniques and a lot of the healing that is needed is in the emotional body. So do you suggest that people that have never been in touch with their feelings, that have actually repressed and denied feelings, can now jump over that and not have to deal with feelings?
I want to talk about healing, and the necessity for healing is in the emotional body. And are you suggesting that people who have feelings that they've never expressed can jump over that now and go straight into a state that I've described? And the answer is yes and no. Life will determine whether they come to be with me. You see, if they come to be with me and listen to me, life itself has brought them, and therefore the potential for change, for transformation, for seeing what I'm saying is there immediately, and zingo, it can go deep in and they can say, my God, yes, that's so. But in the wider world out there, where they should be encouraged to talk about their feelings like therapies do, and talk about their feelings, But I'm saying to any therapist who's with me, the quicker you can get a person to take action, why have I got these feelings? What are they there for? And get them out of their feelings because they go on and on and on, the better, and get them right up into their body. And of course the therapist has to be up in their body to be able to do that. Haven't they? You've got to be the healer has got to be right up here in the body, and you've got to be joyous, and you've got to be free of your own negativity and emotions to really bring about what I am talking about. Because that's my knowledge, and I am free of those things inside of me, so therefore it comes from that knowledge. But then you also have your knowledge, like everybody in the room, which is your genius, and you apply that as best you can, and of course it works for people, because life will bring the people that are for you to you, and you will help them, as life will bring the people that can come and hear what I'm saying to me. And so that's how it works. But the thing is, for you always to be going deeper, for you always be hearing a greater truth. You, the healer, the practitioner, to be healing a greater truth. And as you change your inside yourself and transform yourself by hearing a realer and greater truth and living it, so you'll have the power then to change the people more. And also to bring people who are more receptive to a higher truth to you. And so you move along too. And that's how we all move. Good. Okay then. Well, now we're getting near the end of the afternoon, and I just want to summarise a couple of things. First of all, please, when you get a feeling, know that it is not true. As much as compulsive as you think it is, it's not true. Don't act on your feelings. Be still, look at the situation, take what action is necessary for the situation, not on your feelings, because they will change. Feelings, remember, are the source of thought. So the more that you're able to give up acting on your feelings or giving into them and going into your feelings, the less you will be troubled by thought, which is worry. And the most important thing of all is to keep going into me, just like we have done here. There is nothing more holy or more beautiful nor more inspiration giving than me inside your body there. So in a busy day, when you are reminded to go into me, like we have done here, do it. Don't hesitate. Drop straight into me. Like now, I trust you're there in me. So we'll finish now, here in me. Thank you.
You are listening to the Barry Long audio, The Freedom of the Impersonal, formerly titled Gold Coast Talk, August 1995. For more information, visit www.barrylong.org.